In Montreal, Mayor Valerie Plante collapses during a press conference.
Medical officials who responded to the scene said that she was out of the woods and recovering well. More details on this later in the news.
The mayor was taken.
Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Elago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. A bus crash kills dozens in Antique's killer curve. Rice price surges at NCR's marketplaces. United States intelligence report warns of a surge in foreign terror attacks this holiday season. Rescuers race against time to save 25 stranded miners in Zambia. And the La Salle Green Archers are champions in the 86th season of UAAP men's basketball. A bus plunged off a cliff, killing 17 people in Hamtic, Antique. Rescuers said 7 people were in critical condition in the hospital, while 4 others were in a stable condition. Among the people killed was a Kenyan national, the bus driver, the conductor, and line inspector of the Ceres liner bus. Reports said the bus is headed to Panay. Witnesses claimed that the incident was due to a mechanical failure, as they said that the driver lost control, possibly due to brake failure.
As of end October 2023, the Philippine sovereign debt has increased, driven by additional borrowings from both domestic and international sources, according to data released by the Bureau of the Treasury. The national government's outstanding debt reached 14.48 trillion pesos, marking a 1.49% increase from the previous month's 14.27 trillion. Despite the rise in debt, the country's debt to GDP ratio, a key indicator measuring the government's debt relative to the size of the economy, showed improvement. It stood at 60.2% as of the third quarter, down from 61% in the second quarter. This positive development follows a faster economic growth rate of 5.9% in the same period, compared to 4.3% in the second quarter. A lower debt to GDP ratio suggests that the country is better positioned to repay its debt without adverse effects on the economy. The Marcos administration aims to further reduce this ratio under the medium-term fiscal framework, targeting less than 60% by 2025 and a further decrease to 51.1% by 2028.
The rice prices in some markets in Metro Manila have increased again, particularly at Tandang Sora Market in Quezon City. The price of each sack of rice rose to 20 pesos or 2 pesos to 10 pesos per kilogram. Regular milled rice, which was only 48 pesos, has reached 51 to 53 pesos. Well-milled rice from 51 pesos has increased to 53 to 55 pesos. Special rice is playing at the price of 58 to 65 pesos that was only 54 pesos before. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. previously implemented the price cap on rice this year. The president removed the price cap on rice last October. This made the vendors gradually feel the increasing price of rice again.
A total of 806 job seekers were hired on the spot or employed immediately in the first 3 days of the Department of Labor and Employment's 90th founding anniversary job fairs. Dole said that 6,138 applicants went to 14 job fair sites in the National Capital Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Calabarzon, Central Visayas, Eastern Visayas, Zamboanga Peninsula, Northern Mindanao, Davao Region, and Caraga on December 1, 2, and 4. Labor Secretary Bienvenido E. Ledesma underscored the crucial role played by local government units and their public employment service offices in adjusting employment in their regions. Meanwhile, 440 applicants are referred to the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, 290 are referred to the Bureau of Workers with Special Concerns, and 167 to the Department of Trade and Industry for Entrepreneurship Development. The job fair is scheduled to
crimes. House Speaker Martin Romualdez said that the House is open to reviewing the classification of crimes. This includes consideration of the proposed decriminalization of crimes such as libel, abortion, and dueling. Meanwhile, Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri said that the Senate is ready to study decriminalization measures. He, however, dismissed the decriminalization of abortion. Justice Department spokesperson Miko Clavano clarified that decriminalization is only one of the short-term solutions to the overpopulation of persons deprived of liberty in prisons. The official also admitted that few prisoners may also be freed from jail if similar crimes are decriminalized. Apart from that, the chamber is also studying the steps of having a single and separate departments of corrections and penology for a better prison administration. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin read the message of the chief executive. This is after President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. was tested positive for COVID-19. The president, however, urged the Justice Sector Coordination Council to promote streamlining and the digitalization in its service to solve congestion and improve the condition of inmates in prisons.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has signed two significant pieces of legislation: the Public-Private Partnership, or PPP, Code of the Philippines and the Internet Transactions Act, or ITA, of 2023. Originally scheduled for a ceremonial signing at the Kalayaan Hall of Malacañang Palace in Manila, President Marcos had to cancel the event after testing positive for COVID-19. Instead, he signed the bills while in isolation at his residence in Bahay Pangulo. The president highlighted the importance of the two laws, emphasizing that they signify the country's commitment and readiness to accelerate development and embrace the digital economy. The PPP code aims to address infrastructure gaps and allocate resources efficiently for other essential projects. Meanwhile, the ITA of 2023 seeks to provide mechanisms for the public to confidently engage in the digital economy while ensuring the protection of online consumers and merchants involved in internet transactions.
South Korea is expressing eagerness to enhance trade and investment ties with the Philippines as Seoul moves toward ratifying the recently signed free trade agreement with Manila. South Korean ambassador to the Philippines, Lee Sang-hwa, said the Philippine Senate has assured him that it will soon concur in the ratification of the deal. The free trade agreement involves the lifting of tariffs on 94.8% of Philippine products by South Korea, reciprocated by the opening of the Korean market to 96.5% of Korean products. Tariffs on South Korean cars will be immediately eliminated upon the agreement's entry into force, while tariffs on car parts will be phased out over 5 years. Tariffs for Philippines bananas and processed pineapples will also see gradual elimination. In addition to trade relations, Ambassador Lee affirmed that Seoul is also committed to supporting Manila's initiatives to improve its ease of doing business environment and shows interest in the armed forces of the Philippines' modernization.
The Philippine National Police, or PNP, has identified the name and group of two persons of interest, or POIs, in the Mindanao State University bombing in Marawi City. PNP disclosed the two suspects as Arsani Membisa, known as Lapitos, and Kadapi Membesa with the alias of Engineer. Both are members of Daula Islamia Maute Group. PNP said that witnesses were saying that the two POIs were inside the gymnasium before the explosion. It added that one of the POIs was observed using his phone, prompting one of the assistants to ask him to transfer seats since he was disturbing the event. The police have also obtained CCTV footage from outside the school campus. Enhancing the footage is underway. Meanwhile, the armed forces of the Philippines have set a massive manhunt for the perpetrators. The command disclosed that aside from the two POIs identified, they are also looking for two others who may have served as lookouts during the bombing incident. President Luis Inacio Lula da Silva invites Vladimir Putin to the G20 Summit 2024 in Brazil. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu wants to take military control of Gaza after the Israel-Hamas conflict. And intelligence reports in the U.S. issue a strong warning against possible terror attacks occurring this holiday season. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart.
Sa buhay, minsan lang dumating ang taong masasabi mong tunay na kaibigan.
Yep! At kapag siya'y natagpuan na, huwag mo nang pakawalan.
Ang tunay na kaibigan, laging nandyan kahit kailan.
Handang gawin ang lahat, maging happy ka lang.
Gagawin ang April Song! Para sa'yo, para sa pamilya, at para sa bayan.
Tulad na lang ng inyong mga bagong kaibigan.
Tuwing umaga,
Love!
Tudipet
And everything!
Lunes hanggang Biyernes,
6:30 ng umaga
sa Net 25! Let's get there!
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Canada has committed to supporting the Philippines' climate action projects until 2026, utilizing its $5.3 billion international climate finance. In collaboration with the Philippine government and the United Nations Development Program, Canada aims to address the climate finance gap by implementing nature-based solution projects. Ottawa's support focuses on enhancing biodiversity conservation, climate change mitigation, adaptation, and resilience in the Philippines. Canada Climate Finance Executive Director Andrew Hurst reassured the commitment of Canada to remain engaged in climate finance and bilateral assistance programs in the country. He expressed optimism that the efforts undertaken in the projects could generate creative solutions with a lasting impact beyond the project's conclusion.
French ambassador to the Philippines, Marie Fontanelle, said that Paris is ready to hold joint maritime patrols in the West Philippine Sea. This is to reaffirm France's bid to bolster its role as a like-minded partner in the Indo-Pacific. The Philippines and France are both in negotiations to greenlight the Visiting Forces Agreement between the two states. This would provide a legal framework for the presence of one nation's forces in the other. The envoy disclosed that France's ambitions to increase its presence in the region is part of its Indo-Pacific strategy that aims to promote a rules-based order in the region.
China says Afghanistan will have to implement some reforms before it will restore full diplomatic ties. Beijing wants to see the Taliban introduce political reforms, improve security, and mend relations with its neighbors. Elise Danielle has the details.
Beijing does not formally recognize the Taliban rulers, although both countries host each other's ambassadors and have maintained diplomatic engagement. Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wanbin says China has always believed that Afghanistan should not be excluded from the international community. He adds China is urging Kabul to combat all types of terrorist forces, live in harmony with all countries around the world, and integrate with the international community at an early date. The Taliban government has not been officially recognized by any country since seizing power after the chaotic withdrawal of U.S. troops in August 2021. However, Kabul and Beijing have maintained some ties. Afghanistan's new rulers have promised the country would not be used as a base for militias, and in exchange, China has offered
The Kremlin has announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin is flying to the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. This is to discuss issues relating to the Middle East. Kremlin has also disclosed that Putin will meet his Iranian counterpart, President Ibrahim Raisi, on his return to Moscow. According to Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, Putin is set for a bilateral meeting mostly to tackle Moscow's relations with the two states as well as the cooperation in the oil sector. Peskov also said that Putin and Raisi's meeting would possibly discuss trade, economic, and political cooperation between Moscow and Tehran. This includes the situation in Palestine.
Brazil would welcome Russian President Vladimir Putin at the G20 summit next year. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, however, warned of the risks associated with an international criminal court arrest warrant. The summit will take place after the Russian presidential election in March 2024. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that the president had not yet made the announcement on the matter. Meanwhile, Lula has expressed hope by the time of the 2024 G20 summit, the Ukraine conflict will finally be ended, as well as its international relations will revert to normalcy.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's chief of staff said that the postponement of U.S. assistance for Kyiv being debated in Congress would create a big risk of Ukraine losing the war with Russia. The remarks by Andrei Yermak were some of the frankest yet from a senior Kyiv official as uncertainty swirls over the future of vital U.S. and European Union assistance packages as Ukraine's war with Russia rages on. President Joe Biden's administration asked Congress in October for nearly $106 billion to fund ambitious plans for Ukraine, Israel, and U.S. border security, but Republicans who control the House with a slim majority rejected the package. U.S. officials hope they can still get a significant package approved. Yermak singled out the threat of no more direct budgetary support as a problem. The Ukrainian government expects to have a $43 billion budget deficit for next year. Yermak was making his second visit to Washington in a matter of weeks. He said he planned to press lawmakers and administration officials on the critical importance of Congress approving the new aid package.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky canceled a virtual briefing with U.S. senators and White House officials. Zelensky was about to update the senators on the latest offensive in its conflict with Russia. He would also ask the Congress to support a procedural vote on an additional emergency aid package that includes more than $60 billion for Kyiv. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Zelensky had other matters to attend to. He added that Zelensky's team did not offer any explanation as to why the Kyiv leader abruptly withdrew from the briefing. After Zelensky's sudden cancellation, Schumer pressed ahead with the briefing, but sources said the briefing grew contentious. Some Republicans, including Senators Jeb Fisher and Mitt Romney, even walked out early. Media reports stated that U.S. lawmakers were discussing updates for military aid packages for Ukraine and Israel. But some lawmakers have sought to link new Ukraine aid to fund border agencies of the United States. There are also reports that multiple senators are threatening to hold up the spending bill unless it includes desired provisions for controls on immigration.
Israel's military said that its ground operation in Gaza was at its most intense day as it continued an offensive that has expanded to all of Gaza, not just the north of the territory, as troops were pushing into Khan Yunis, Gaza's second largest city. IDF's defense minister Yoav Gallant said that its third phase was targeting Hamas strongholds in the south.
יש רק דרך אחת להצדיק את הקורבן. הניצחון. והניצחון צריך להיות החלטי, חד, מדויק ונוגע במטרות שקבענו.
The United Nations warned that an even more hellish scenario is about to unfold in southern Gaza. The offensive in the north involved orders for people to evacuate to the south, and the UN Secretary General said that people have nowhere safe to go.
In the current context of the so-called safe zones, they are not scientific, they are not rational, they are not possible. And I think the authorities are aware of this. I think it's callous, I think it's cold, and I think it reinforces the indifference towards children and women in Gaza. And I've seen in hospitals from the south to the north that indifference is lethal. It's heartbreaking and it's confounding.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said at a briefing that the only way to end the war is to use overwhelming force. And he said that Israel's military would be the only force he would accept for the demilitarization of Gaza.
לאחרונה שואלים אותי, האם יש לנו לגיטימציה להמשיך? ואני אומר, אין לנו לגיטימציה להפסיק. יש רק דבר לגיטימי אחד, לנצח את החמאס, להכות אותו ולחסל אותו.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that the military would have to retain open-ended security control over the Gaza Strip long after the war against Hamas ends.
אנחנו הנחינו את צה"ל להמשיך במלחמה. לוחמינו מרחיבים את הפעילות הקרקעית נגד חמאס בכל מקום ברצועה, כולל בדרום הרצועה.
The remarks came as Israel's military said its troops had entered Gaza's second-largest city in its pursuit to wipe out the territory's Hamas rulers. The war has already killed more than 15,000 Palestinians and displaced over 3/4 of Gaza's 2.3 million residents who are running out of safe haven.
האדמה רעדה בח'אן יונס, האדמה רעדה בג'באליה, כיתרנו את שתיהן. אין מקום שאנחנו לא מגיעים אליו.
The Health Ministry in Hamas-run Gaza said the death toll in the territory since October 7 has surpassed 16,248, with more than 42,000 wounded. The ministry does not differentiate between civilian and combatant deaths, but said 70% of the dead were women and children. Israel says it targets Hamas operatives and blames civilian casualties on the militants, accusing them of operating in residential neighborhoods. The United States, Qatar, and Egypt, which mediated an earlier ceasefire, say that they are working on a longer truce. Hamas said talks on releasing more of the scores of hostages seized by militants on October 7 must be tied to a permanent ceasefire.
עזה חייבת להיות מפורזת. וכדי שעזה תהיה מפורזת, יש רק כוח אחד שיכול לדאוג לפירוז הזה. והכוח הזה הוא צבא ההגנה לישראל. שום כוח בינלאומי לא יכול להיות אחראי לכך.
United States Senator Bernie Sanders has opposed the $10 billion aid to Israel. This is after the senator argued that the funds would make Washington complicit in Israel's war in Gaza. President Joe Biden has requested a $106 billion worth of spending bill. Senator Sanders has also urged his Democratic Party colleagues to pull more than $10 billion in military aid for Israel from the said bill. Sanders, however, did not disclose whether he would vote against the $106 billion funds. This is in the situation where Sanders and every single Senate Republican were to vote against the bill. Democrats could still pass it by making use of Vice President Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote.
A new joint bulletin from the United States Departments of Homeland Security and Justice to local and state federal law warns the American public that groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS will likely ramp up potential attacks and terroristic threats within their country. They further added that these terrorist groups may use the Israel-Hamas war to increase calls for violence in the U.S. during the holiday season compared to prior years, with their primary potential targets being churches and other places of worship. with the Israeli military bearing down in southern Gaza and crucial holidays being only days away. A new intelligence report warns of increased threats from foreign terrorist groups, mirroring FBI Director Christopher Wray's testimony, which he told the Senate Judiciary Committee that he could see red flags everywhere.
Are you concerned that international terrorism threats to the homeland are rising as the border continues to be broken?
I am concerned that we are in an elevated threat environment, a heightened threat environment from foreign terrorist organizations for a whole host of reasons. And obviously their ability to exploit any port of entry, including our southwest border, is a source of concern. You know, there's a lot of discussion about numbers, and numbers are important, but let's not forget that it didn't take a big number of people on 9/11 to kill 3,000 people.
Wray warned terrorists may try to exploit the U.S. southern border as he urged the FBI to identify and disrupt potential attacks. The internal government report comes as new details have emerged about an alleged plot to attack Las Vegas. Authorities arrested a 16-year-old suspect who allegedly wrote on social media about launching a lone wolf attack in support of ISIS. Investigators say they recovered a homemade ISIS flag and bomb parts, among other items.
On Tuesday, November 28th, we uncovered a terrorism threat on a social media messaging platform. The threat involved a suspect that claimed he was commencing lone wolf terrorist attacks here in Las Vegas in furtherance of support for the Islamic State terrorist organization, also known as ISIS.
There is no specific or credible threat, and Wray testified there's nothing to indicate Hamas has the intent or capability to conduct operations inside the U.S., but Wray added the Bureau has not discounted the possibility.
And we have seen an increase in so-called KSTs, known as suspected terrorists, attempting to cross, over the last 5 years.
So your testimony before this committee, since October 7th, the urging a foreign terrorist organization to attack America has gone up. Is that fair to say?
Yes, the threat level has gone to a whole nother level since October 7th.
Guyana says it will ask the UN Security Council for help if Venezuela makes any moves on a disputed oil-rich region. This after a referendum Caracas says bolstered its claim to it. Caracas officials say Sunday's referendum yielded a 95% yes response on whether to lay claim to the Essequibo region and grant Venezuelan citizenship to its inhabitants. JC Yumal has more.
Guyana's Attorney General Anil Nandlal says any action or any attempt to take any action after the referendum will end in it asking help from the UN Security Council as an injured party. Guyana has administered Essequibo for over a century. The region makes up more than the 2/3 of its territory. Litigation is pending before the ICJ over where the border should lie. Essequibo is the home for 125,000 of Guyana's 800,000 citizens. Venezuela, however, does not recognize the ICJ's jurisdiction in the matter. It claims that the Essequibo River to the region's east forms a natural border, and it recognized as such. The dispute has been intensified since ExxonMobil discovered oil in Essequibo in 2015. Caracas called Sunday's referendum after Georgetown started auctioning off oil blocks in Essequibo in August. On Monday, President Nicolas Maduro claimed popular backing from Venezuela's claim or Essequibo following the referendum. He says the outcome was a powerful vital boost. Guyana asked the ICJ to block the vote. On Friday, the court urged Caracas to take no action that might affect disputed territory. It did not, however, grant Georgetown's request for urgent intervention. It ruled that Venezuela shall not take any action which would alter the situation currently prevailing in the disputed territory. Guyana's President Irfan Ali warns that if Venezuela ignores the court order, it would lead to the suffering of the Venezuela people, at great injustice to the people of Venezuela, he says. JC Yumul for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Spotify is cutting 17% of its workforce. That's about 1,500 jobs. Chief Executive Daniel Ek cited cost management and the slow economy as reasons for the mass layoff. He explained that downsizing the number of their employees was also needed for the company to meet its objectives. Ek added that affected employees would receive a calendar invitation within the next 2 hours from HR for a one-on-one conversation.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has issued an order for the country's state-owned companies to immediately initiate exploration and exploitation of oil, gas, and mines in Guyana's Essequibo region. This announcement followed Maduro's claim of victory in a weekend referendum regarding the sovereignty of the disputed region. Venezuela has long maintained that the Essequibo region was unlawfully taken during the drawing of borders over a century ago. However, Guyana views the referendum as a step towards annexation, causing anxiety among its residents. After the successful passage of the referendum, Maduro is set to grant operating licenses to explore and exploit oil, gas, and mines in the Essequibo region. He has also mandated the establishment of local subsidiaries for Venezuelan public companies, including major players in the oil and mining sectors.
Credit rating agency Moody's says the risk from China's debt pile is mounting as the country wrestles from economic slowdown and property crisis. Moody's also downgraded its outlook for Chinese sovereign bonds from stable to negative on Tuesday. The move triggered its signal to potential lenders that the risk of a default by Beijing has increased over the past year. Moody's also warned that China would need to bail out local and regional governments and state-owned businesses that were struggling with rising debts. But some analysts said this could hamper efforts to boost investment and growth. Beijing said it was disappointed by Moody's announcement, asserting that the economy of China is resilient. China also signaled plans to speed up stimulus spending to combat soaring youth unemployment and deepening woes in the property sector. Up next, Cyclone Michaung makes landfall in southern India. A Nobel Peace Prize laureate speaks out against the Taliban. And genetic database 23andMe has been hacked. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal. Kwentuhang makaka-relate kay you.
Menopause.
Yes.
Meron ka bang nararamdaman ng mga signs ng menopause?
Menopause really happens. In my case, I had a condition called endometriosis.
Miss Corina, ganda po ng hair nyo. Ano pong shampoo nyo?
Mapa-senior man kay you.
My apos are here. They're here with me and they give me such joy. And so, kung hindi ako magtatrabaho, how could I spoil them?
O Gen Z.
Nar is actually an accent from Australia. So like when you say no, you don't say no. They say nar.
Bida kayo dito.
Shumay!
Let's just always choose to be kind.
Kaya ugaliin ang tumutok kung saan masaya at maganda ang simula ng araw. 10 a.m. to 12, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, kada umaga.
Cyclone Michaung has made landfall on the southern Indian coast, bringing intense winds along with torrential rains and flooding. The cyclone's approach has resulted in at least 13 fatalities, including a 4-year-old boy who died after a wall collapsed. Tall waves have battered southern coastal towns, submerging villages and disrupting transportation. Over 390,000 people have been affected by the cyclone, leading to the cancellation of more than 140 trains and 40 flights in the state of Andhra Pradesh. Michang made landfall near the beach town of Bapatla with winds reaching up to 112 kilometers per hour, later weakening as it progressed.
Meanwhile, emergency service workers in Honduras are at the scene of a deadly bus crash. The accident claimed 13 lives and injured 30 others. The accident happened Tuesday when a bus skidded off a bridge and plunged into a creek at the bottom of a ravine near the Honduran capital of Tegucigalpa. Witnesses say an oncoming truck crossed the center line, forcing the bus off the road. A fire department spokesman says the victims included a 3-month-old baby. The bus carried 60 passengers. Ambulances and a helicopter took the injured to the hospital. President Xiomara Castro has declared 3 days of national mourning. She says the government will cover the funeral costs of the victims.
Operators of legal gold mines in Peru are calling for a crackdown on illegal mining operations. The call follows a weekend attack on a illegal mine that left at least 9 people dead and more than a dozen injured. Marjorie Quintos reports.
Peru's Interior Ministry blames the attack on a group of armed criminals it says raided the Poderosa gold mine in western Peru. Among the dead are 7 security guards who tried to repel the attackers and 2 miners. The miners died when the assailants threw explosives into a mine shaft. The ministry says 15 people suffered injuries in the attack, but local media reports that 23 have been injured. Police have apprehended 7 of the attackers. Authorities are trying to determine a motive. In recent years, criminal gangs have been targeting legal mines. Peru is a big supplier of gold and silver and the second largest copper producer in the world. Marjorie Quintos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Zambia's rescue teams are continuing efforts to locate at least 25 informal miners who were buried alive in a mudslide at the Cecily mine in Chingola. The incident occurred on Thursday night when heavy rains flooded the open-pit copper mine, trapping miners in 3 different locations. Zambia's rescue workers, which began on Friday, faced challenges due to the soft ground conditions. While it remains uncertain how many miners are trapped, Zambia's Mines Minister Paul Kabuswe has reported that 25 families have come forward to claim missing relatives who were working at the mine during the accident. Informal mining is common in Zambia, where artisanal miners often operate without proper safety procedures in search of minerals.
A leftover bomb from the Second World War has been detonated off the coast of Denmark. The Danish Navy took care of the ordnance in a controlled explosion. Fishermen discovered the 130-kilogram bomb in one of their nets. They immediately notified authorities. The armed forces then took over. They attached a 10-kilogram explosive charge to the weapon. They then put it back into the water and set it off. The explosion occurred about 15 meters underwater.
Nobel Peace Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai accuses the Taliban in Afghanistan of practicing gender apartheid. Her comment came during an address to the Mandela Foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa. Jane Kathleen Gregorio tells us more.
The 21st Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture speaker with Malala Yousafzai.
Malala Yousafzai says the suffering of girls in Afghanistan has been sidelined by other events in the world. She likened the restrictions the Taliban placed on women to the way South Africa treated black people under apartheid. Yousafzai says Afghan girls have been frozen out of school. She says no girl should have to suffer this way.
In effect, the Taliban have made girlhood illegal, and it is taking a toll. Girls kept out of school are experiencing depression and anxiety. Some are turning to narcotics, attempting suicide. No girl anywhere in the world should have to suffer this way.
When she was 15 in her native Pakistan, Yousafzai survived being shot in the head while demonstrating against the Pakistani Taliban's attempts to ban education for girls. She won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014. Jane Kathleen Gregorio for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Pollution is choking the Iranian capital of Tehran and other cities in the country. And that's prompted officials to close schools and order some government employees to stay home. Bobby Soriano reports.
Poor air quality is a recurring problem in Iran during the autumn and winter time. The red warning for hazardous air quality extends beyond the capital, affecting major cities nationwide. The clear blue sky at dawn gives way to a yellowish smog that blankets affected cities and obscures visibility. In Tehran, kindergartens and schools have closed their doors since Sunday and are holding classes online. Officials say children, the elderly, and pregnant women should stay indoors and refrain from physical exercise. Vulnerable public sector workers are being urged to work remotely. Many experts warn of the grave health and economic consequences of pollution. They say it claims the lives of about 40,000 people each year in the oil-rich country of around 85 million people. Tehran, renowned for its congested traffic and high population, makes up about 1/6 of the total casualties. Bobby Soriano from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In Canada, Montreal Mayor Valerie Plante is reported to be out of danger after collapsing during a press conference on homelessness. Plante was answering questions when she suddenly paused and subsequently kneeled to the ground. The news conference was canceled and journalists were asked to stop recording. She was conscious when she received assistance from staff, then got up after and left the premises. A spokesperson for the mayor confirms that she is out of danger and will receive necessary medical support. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and others have conveyed wishes for her quick recovery. The duration of Plante's absence from work is unclear, but Montreal spokesperson Catherine Cadot mentioned that the mayor would gradually resume her duties.
It is National Influenza Vaccine Week in the U.S., and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention urges families and individuals to go out and get vaccinated. Rosel Feria reports.
Did you know that millions of children get sick with flu every year, and that thousands, more often than not, get hospitalized? December 4 to 8 is National Influenza Vaccination Week here in the U.S., and CDC calls to action everyone 6 months and older to get their yearly flu vaccine. This, especially pregnant people, young kids, and those at higher risk. CDC says the more people vaccinated against the flu, the more people are protected from it. The health agency says that a flu shot is the only vaccine that protects against flu. It has been shown to reduce the risk of flu illness, hospitalization, and death. In Washington, D.C., Rosel Feria for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In the U.S., 3 agencies released a national strategy to push forward a common goal to reduce food loss and waste in the country by 50% by the year 2030. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad reports.
Here in the U.S., food is the single most common material found in landfills. The Food and Drug Administration says over 1/3, nearly 100 million tons of municipal waste stream is organic waste. Food comprises 66 million tons of that waste. The Food and Drug Administration, the Agriculture Department, and the Environmental Protection Agency announced a strategy to get closer to the national goal to reduce loss and waste of food to half by the year 2030. FDA Commissioner Dr. Robert M. Califf says these agencies want Americans to feel empowered and confident in their ability to play a part of the mission to reduce food waste. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Many PlayStation Network users have reportedly claimed that their accounts were permanently suspended for no clear reason. Sony has unexpectedly permanently suspended many accounts from the PlayStation Network due to violations of the terms of service and user agreement. This is the reported message received by those users whose accounts were terminated. Many of them expressed distraught over the fact that they may have spent a lot of money on digital PlayStation games that they no longer have access to. Meanwhile, Sony has not publicly acknowledged the issues, as well as any posts on their social media account. It remains unclear how the widespread problems occurred, as the company didn't immediately reply to the user's request for comment.
On Friday, genetic testing company 23andMe announced that hackers accessed the personal data of about 14,000 individuals. Elijah Villanueva has the data.
23andMe, a company that offers a direct-to-consumer genetic testing service, has been hacked. This was confirmed Friday by the company. The hackers stole the information of about 6.5 million customers, including birth year, relationship labels, the percentage of DNA shared with relatives, ancestry reports, self-reported location, and health-related information. The stolen user profiles were then posted by the hacker for sale on the internet. According to 23andMe, the hacker only had direct access to about 14,000 of 23andMe's 14 million customers, or 0.1%. But since many users chose to share information with people they're genetically related to, the hacker was able to access information about millions more. To access a user's information, the hacker used passwords that had been recycled and used for other websites that were previously hacked. 23andMe is the first breach of a major company in which the exposure of health information was publicly disclosed. And the exposure of a user's health information could have worrisome consequences. For instance, customers might get denied a job opportunity if a DNA test reveals they are at risk of eventually developing a debilitating condition. Meanwhile, 23andMe said it expects to incur $1 to $2 million in costs related to the breach. Elijah Villanueva for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
New Zealand is set to enter a new era of aviation with the introduction of electric aircraft for parcel and letter distribution between the sparsely populated regions. Air New Zealand has announced the acquisition of a battery-powered, all-electric 5-seater cargo aircraft designed by U.S. aero firm Beta Technologies. The Agila aircraft is expected to commence mail runs between airports in collaboration with New Zealand's Postal Service in 2026. The next-generation aircraft will operate like a conventional airplane, taking off and landing accordingly. It is capable of carrying up to 560 kilograms of cargo and reaches speeds of up to 270 kilometers per hour. Air New Zealand will assess potential routes for the initial flights and plans to install specialized charging infrastructure, such as charging cubes at airports to recharge the aircraft between runs. In addition to the cargo aircraft, Air New Zealand is exploring zero-emissions options from 3 other companies, including smaller passenger aircraft, as part of its ongoing efforts to decarbonize aviation. Coming right up, a father's deathbed confession brings an end to one of America's biggest mysteries. The LaSalle Green Archers are UAAP champions. And investors and fans alike cheer as Blackpink renews their group contract. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ashley Randall, who has been in charge of taking care of her father, whose health was deteriorating rapidly due to lung cancer, had been charged with her car salesman father's biggest secret. Catherine Urtula has the story.
The 71-year-old Thomas Randall died from lung cancer in Boston on May 18, 2021, only months after he opened up to his incredulous daughter about the crime.
And that night at about 2:30 in the morning, alone in my childhood bedroom, I looked up Ted Conrad and then put in the word missing, figuring it's been 50 years, somebody might be looking for him. And that's when I saw the headline, like vault teller, heist. And I was absolutely floored. Like, could not have been more shocked. I think I said out loud just to the room, oh my gosh, my life is a Lifetime movie.
Thomas Randall, an amicable, loving father, had just revealed that he was really Ted Conrad, the mastermind of one of America's most notorious unsolved bank heists. Ashley told podcast Smokescreen My Fugitive Dad that back in 1969, Conrad has swiped $215,000, which would be around $1.8 million if adjusted for inflation today, from Society National Bank, for which he served as a teller in Cleveland. He then fled with the money to Washington, D.C., leaving all his friends and family behind, and began a new life under a fake name. From there, Conrad obtained a new social security number and moved to Boston, where he met his wife, Kathy, and raised his only child, Ashley. Some of the charges Conrad had faced, including embezzling from the bank and falsifying records, were ultimately dropped as he outwitted efforts to find him, presumably allowing time for the statute of limitations to expire. When Conrad died in 2021, Randall said she planned to keep his secret until federal agents knocked on her door 2 months later, saying they had questions about the unsolved heist. Catherine Urtula for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
India's health ministry wants to investigate Apollo Hospital Delhi after UK's Telegraph accused the hospital of cash for an international kidney racket. The newspaper also claimed poor people from Myanmar are lured to sell their kidneys for profit and organ transplants. In a letter shared with the press, the National Organ and Tissue Transplant Organization also asked India's health ministry to get the matter examined, take appropriate action, and furnish an action taken report within a week. Health authorities said they have formed a committee to probe the matter, and details of donors and patients have been sought from the hospital. Apollo Hospitals has denied all the allegations.
The dynamic duo of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard shined bright on the most crucial moments of the in-season tournament so far, as some stellar performances and some clutch last-minute play calls seal the deal for the Lakers against the Suns. Vin Pasqua has the score.
Fear the Deer was on full display as Giannis Antetokounmpo had 35 points and 10 assists, and Damian Lillard added 28 points as the Milwaukee Bucks beat the New York Knicks 146-122 to reach the semifinals of the NBA's inaugural in-season tournament. The Bucks posted a season high in scoring rating, shooting 23 out of their 39 attempts from three-point range and 60.4 overall to set up a matchup with Indiana in Las Vegas. Milwaukee is 5-0 in tournament play, which extends their home winning streak to 9 games. The Bucks hold a 15-6 record, winning 10 of 12 overall games, holding home court advantage. Julius Randle scored a season-high 41 points for the Knicks, whose 3-game winning streak was snapped. Jalen Brunson added 24 points and RJ Barrett scored 23 for New York, in which earned a wildcard berth in the knockout round through a point differential tiebreaker. Antetokounmpo had an injury scare less than 2 minutes into the game after tipping in a missed shot. He landed on Randle's foot and rolled his left ankle. Antetokounmpo fell to the ground in pain. He eventually limped up the court but stayed in the game and tallied 10 of the Bucks' first 13 points. On the other side of the draft, LeBron James outduels Kevin Durant to lead Lakers past Suns in NBA in-season tournament quarterfinals. Led by an outstanding performance by LeBron James, who had a historic performance akin to Magic Johnson on the same team, tallying 31 points, 11 dummies, 8 boards, 5 steals, and shooting 12 out of 25 in the game. The Lakers outlasted the Suns 106-103 in an NBA in-season tournament quarterfinal that featured a controversial call in the closing seconds that benefited LA. Anthony Davis missed a second free throw that would have sealed the game, giving the Suns a chance to the game, but Kevin Durant's three-pointer airballed. Kevin Durant was 12 of 17 from the field, with one of his misses being a game-tying three-pointer. As time expired, he had 31 points. He was joined by both Devin Booker and Grayson Allen, both of whom had 21 points each. The Lakers won to advance to Las Vegas for the semifinals of the in-season tournament to face the New Orleans Pelicans. Reporting for sports, Vin Pascua for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The LaSalle Green Archers ended a 7-year title drought in UAAP men's basketball following a 73-69 win over the UP Fighting Maroons to capture the season 86 title. The first 2 games were lopsided affairs. UP made history in Game 1 with a massive 97-67 rout of LaSalle. But the Green Archers turned the tables in Game 2, crushing the Fighting Maroons 82-60. Led by runaway MVP winner Kevin Kiambao, the Archers won the last 2 games of the best-of-3 series to capture their first championship since 2016. Kiambao finished with 24 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 blocks, while Evan Nele netted 12 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, and 2 steals to lift LaSalle to its 10th men's basketball crown in league history. LaSalle bounced back with a resounding 82-60 win in Game 2 and completed the title romp in Game 3 as it dealt the Maroons their only back-to-back losses of the season. With the defeat, UP fell short of its second championship in 3 seasons.
YG Entertainment announced that all 4 members of Blackpink renewed their agency contract as a group. This follows months of contract negotiations during which fans and investors felt as the group could split up. After the contract renewal, shares of YG Entertainment finished 26% higher on Wednesday. YG Plus, its content production affiliate, shot up 24%. The agency also said Blackpink will make a new album and do another world tour.
YouTuber pilot Trevor Jacob has been sentenced to 6 months in prison after deliberately crashing an airplane for views and obstructing the federal investigation that followed. Trevor Daniel Jacob is an experienced pilot and former Olympian that has now turned into a YouTube sensation after he pled guilty of staging a plane crash for commercial and financial gain. The viral clip titled "I Crashed My Plane," uploaded on December 2021, gained almost 3 million views before being deleted. In a plea agreement made by Jacob, he admitted that he agreed to upload a 13-minute video of him jumping out with a parachute and letting a plane crash into a California hillside as a part of a product promotion deal for a wallet made by the company in the video. Days after the incident, Jacob confessed and informed authorities, but the National Transportation Safety Board said that he lied about not knowing the exact location of the crash. The Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, went and launched their own investigation, revealing that Jacob and his friend flew via a helicopter and accessed the wreckage by themselves. They then flew evidence back and got rid of the parts, disposing it in various areas. In June this year, Jacob pleaded guilty to the crime and has now been sentenced to 6 years in prison on 1 count of destruction and concealment, with the intent of obstructing a federal investigation.
And to send you off today, here's a quote from music icon Dolly Parton. "The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you gotta put up with the rain."
And if there's something that we know from our experience, there will always be a rainbow at the end of the rain.
There will always be a rainbow at the end of the rain. And the heavier the rain, in fact, when there is a storm, we are likely to expect a rainbow.
Oh, I love rainbows.
Me too.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Rich Yelago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.